As a spiritual seeker, I journeyed to the barrier islands of South Carolina to visit the Gullah people, hailed as the best preserved African culture in the United States. I wanted to learn something about African American Christianity, about its roots, about how African beliefs and practices influenced this dynamic form of Christianity. This is Anthony Chiorazzi. I'm the author of the article In the Land of God and Gullah for Busted Halo. These photos are of the Gullah communities in the lowlands of South Carolina and Georgia. Today, over 300,000 Gullah live along the Atlantic coast, from South Carolina to northern Florida. The Gullah were able to develop a unique culture that retained much of its West African traditions for two reasons: the physical isolation of the barrier islands, and because during much of the 18th and 19th century, plantation owners retreated from the humid and disease-ridden islands to the cooler mainland, leaving the Gullah free to assert their African culture. I learned many things from the Gullah, like the impetus for modern music might have begun with the Gullah spirituals or religious songs that evolved into the blues, gospel, jazz, rock and roll. So we very well might be able to say that the popular secular music that we enjoy today has its origins in religious expression. But for me, the most impressive African influence on the Gullah is the idea that God is something to be felt and experienced, as opposed to something to be studied and understood. One Gullah religious leader in the 1930s even said in Gullah that white people, quote, got the knowing of the why and hows of religion, but the ain't never got the feel of it yet, end quote. Now, where might this historic African-American attraction to charismatic Christianity come from? Well, some say that in traditional African spirituality, possession by God was the ultimate objective, and that this was reinterpreted in Christian terms among the Gullah, with references to the Holy Spirit being the muse or source of ecstatic religious expression. Reborn again! From the Gullah, I have learned something about connecting with God and letting go of the mind and overthinking, which are my personal impediments, but instead to open up the heart and let myself feel God. And on a Sunday morning in a small church in St. Helena, it happened. When I was no longer thinking, I was suddenly swaying and nodding with the congregation. And my mind was no longer filled with thoughts, but with feeling, passion, music, and spirit. And for a short time, I was Gullah, and it felt great. I get to heaven, I ain't coming back.